Hi, and welcome to that walkthrough of the SharePoint Framework in Angular boilerplate. Today, I really want to make sure that everyone understand quickly how that boilerplate is made. So I really wanted to do some kind of a walkthrough of the code that is being shipped as the base of the SharePoint Framework Angular boilerplate. So first of all, maybe you saw this blog post I posted on the 31st of July 2017, where I introduced the SPFx Angular boilerplate. And here I'm really doing a very high level walkthrough of how to configure the web part. But I want to go a bit deeper in that video that will cover the components and everything in there. So first thing you need to do, you need to go to GitHub. So you will find in my GitHub, github.com/sebastiannavarre/spfx Angular boilerplate. You will be able to find a link to be able to clone it. So I will start with you from the start, and we will do everything together. So I will open that commander command. I'll go in. I'll do no, I'll just do that right there. So git clone of that thing right here. So what I'll do here, I'll just do, I'll change the SPFX Angular boilerplate, and I will just do code dot. So I will open right here the code of that solution right in my Visual Studio Code, and I want to show you a bit what's under the hood before I can even run it. So first of all, everything starts with packaging Angular into your application. So that's the first thing you need to understand that is necessary. So the first thing I did here, I actually added all of those different references. So the Angular common, compiler, core, HTTP, platform, platform dynamic, and router. Those are the core components of Angular that we're bundling directly into our own solution. Then afterwards, we're also bundling those different ones here. So core.js, reflect metadata, RxJS, system.js, and zone.js. Those are all dependencies of the Angular framework. So we add to make sure that those are injected or referenced inside our package.json. So the next time you will do an npm install, they will load everything, install that, and everything is going to be ready. Second thing, Angular is actually built in a way, and the SharePoint framework is built in another way, and some of the libraries seems to collide together. So what we're doing here, we're adding this specific property to our JSON object that will skip the library check. So it will not check the library, it will just bundle that when it does the external Webpack bundle. So we don't need to check in there. We don't need to check if there's any thing that breaks. It will not, but if you want to avoid to have a bunch of errors into your gulp serve when you're going to run your application, you need to put that in place. Then afterwards, there's going to be some critical dependency errors from Angular that's going to be thrown in your window. First thing you'll have to do is to go into your gulp file to actually add a here a context replacement plugin that was just going to say everything that's as core, use that based on the source. If not, it has some kind of a weird issue that is already documented at Angular. So for now, the solution to do that is to do the following. So we're actually, before we initialize the Webpack configuration, we're changing a bit of its configuration using that new plugin. And we're also requiring that Webpack and that path from the null module that we're running using Gulp. Last thing that needs to happen at the framework level is the following. So you need to go into the config. In config.json, you need to externalize zone.js. Zone.js is what is absolutely necessary to manage the zone. So manage the different components and the life cycle of the components. This is what zone.js is doing. But there's only one JS that is actually supported on a page. So you cannot have two different instances of Zone.js or two different loadings of Zone.js. So what's going to happen here, because all of our components will reference a Zone.js that will be loaded from a CDN, it will not override an existing Zone.js, and it will just use the one that is already defined, which means that now Zone.js will have a single instance and will be able to manage multiple web parts. So that is necessary to get things started. Without that, you won't be able to get into your web part and gonna have a lot of things that are actually won't work. Then afterwards, I like to do also a walkthrough of how the code is being structured. So everything starts by our source file, our source folder, where you will find a core folder. And this is where we have the base Angular web part. So we make sure that we provide a base Angular web part. That web part is actually a web part that implements all the different logic that is needed to bundle and to bootstrap your Angular app directly into your different web parts for the SharePoint framework. So there's a bunch of things that are happening here. Forget about the squigglies. We'll have to do a npm install to remove all of those. But the things that are actually pretty important to note are actually the following. First one is this one. First, it is in the base Angular web part that we're gonna render our web part. So we don't have to render the web part on any of our web parts are gonna implement that abstract class. Everything will be done natively using the inner HTML. So we're going to inject the inner HTML. That's going to be our Angular tag and the context instance ID. That instance ID will be where will provide an instance per web part. So you're going to be able to have multiple instances of the same web part running on the exact same page. Pretty cool. Then we're going to bootstrap the module, and the module will actually do the following. The following will go in and actually just find the actual module, do its configuration, and then just wrap it up directly on the page. So it means that it's going to find the HTML element, bootstrap it, and automatically run the zone, meaning that it's going to apply everything is needed, and the component will be built and available on the page. The last method I want to show you in that class is this get module. This is where we actually get the module and we build here our ng module or application that's going to import a bunch of routes, components, declarations, providers, everything that is required to build a ng module, and that is done dynamically. So we don't set a module at the application level. We set that dynamically because we need to have multiple modules running on the same page. Then something will actually implement or inherit from that base class, and this will be your web part. So if we're going to our basic Angular web part.ts, we're going to see here that it's going to actually extend the base Angular web part based on a specific set of properties basic on the app component. So the app component will actually be the component that will be the root of all of our components. So it's like the app. So everything will sit inside that. And here we have to specify what will be our root component type. So we're going to know what is the first level of components to generate, and then automatically it's going to generate the entire tree. What are the different subcomponents we're going to use just to make sure that everything is bundled within your own application? What are the routes you want to use? What are the different providers you want to use? And that can also be considered as your app start into your Angular module. So you can go in and set some startup variables, values to be used across all of your components. And that's it. That's the only thing that needs to happen in that thing here. The rest will be all in the actual Angular application. So first thing I want to show you is the app component. What's that app component? So if you go to the app folder, you will find the app.component.ts. In there, there's going to be pretty much nothing. There's going to be one thing, a class, that's going to have a thing called get component. That get component is super important. This is how our basic Angular web part will be able to get into it and get the actual component. So our first component cannot be an 100% Angular component, as it will not, the SharePoint framework would not support it to be automatically bundled in. So you need to, at some point, hack it a bit just to return a component using the class provided by Angular, put in some of the selectors using the parameters right here. So the selector will be Angular selector ID. The selector ID will be the context ID passed by the web part instance. And what is a template? And for any template, you're going to always have a router outlet. This is where everything's going to happen, and your routes will define what's going inside that application. Then afterwards, that's it. We have a home component inner, which is a empty class that does pretty much nothing. Then afterwards, we were gonna set our routes. The routes will be right here. And we're gonna pretty much only say that our routes, when we're at the slash, when we're at the root of our components, of our component base, we're gonna use the home component. What is the home component? This is where we will have our actual real components, and this is where it becomes to be 100% Angular code. So here I go here, I have a component with a selector, with a template that I can put in directly HTML, or I can also use a require that's going to take my HTML and then bundle that directly into my Webpack bundle. And I have here a regular class with a private title, constructor, some injection parameters. I'll be able to use those values. And then if I go to the HTML, I will see that I will have a list here. And that list is also another component. So I will go to see my list component right here. And I will be able to see that my selector is list. So I will be able to use that throughout my application based on the needs and based on the injection I want to do from components to components. And then afterwards, my actual list component with all the logic using my different services and all of that. Nothing extremely complex in terms of Angular code, a lot of plumbing around the Angular platform. And now the great thing is that if I run that code, I will be able to add multiple of those web parts on the same page with multiple configurations. So all of our SharePoint web parts using the SharePoint framework will be 100% independent. There will not be anything in there that will actually be broken or that will share code together. Everything will be independent, and that's exactly what we want as much isolation as possible. So let me do the npm install. That will take a while. And once it's done, we're going to be able to run the gulp serve directly from here, where everything will be generated, and we're going to be able to use the code directly on a SharePoint framework local workbench. Now that everything was installed using the npm install, I can now use my gulp serve command to easily start serving my code directly into my local workbench. It's gonna serve, it's gonna create all your packages, all your TypeScript file. Everything will be Webpack, so it's gonna create the bundle. From there, it's gonna also use the gulp file that we modified to inject that Webpack context plugin for my Angular code. Then once it's ready, it's gonna open my browser. And in the browser, I will be able to use and add my web part. So now my workbench was open. I can come here, add the basic Angular, edit my web part, and say that basic Angular is awesome. Also, we'll be able to get in and add the list name. That will be my test list, and then automatically afterwards, it's gonna generate some mocked data. To prove the concept that everything can work on a page with multiple instances of the same web part, I'll just use a second one. You see they have a totally different configuration. And if I did this one, for example, is great. Both have absolutely different set of configuration. I can do the exact same thing connecting to my hosted environment. The big difference that's going to happen here is the fact that I will be able to go in, for example, select my basic Angular in here, edit that, say that is awesome when online. So now I'm in the online, and here I can just go in and say I want to use my contacts list, and automatically it's going to leverage and pull the data from a contacts list that exists in that site. I can also have two different web parts with different configuration. And for example, let's go with site pages, and I should see two different pages also. So that was the walkthrough of that solution. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments or reach out to @Sebastien directly on Twitter. Thanks, and happy coding using the Angular framework and the SharePoint framework. Cheers, bye.